So you're probably asking yourself, what is this Cooking with Dave YouTube channel all about? And I thought I'd take a couple of minutes and talk about it. When I first started the channel, I had in mind to talk about how I was making the move from being basically a carnivore to moving to being more of a vegetarian, but eating some fish. And as we've evolved over time, I've started to think about how I want to approach this a little differently. I was originally just doing some recipes where I'd show you how I make something, but I think I'd like to take it further and actually talk about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how you can get some really great flavors out of some really amazing foods. So let me back up for a minute and talk about myself for just a second. I grew up eating everything. I ate everything under the sun. I would try anything. If somebody would put it in front of me, I'd probably try it. Once in a while, I'd be a little cautious about something, but I lived by that Andrew Zimmern sort of philosophy. If it looks good, eat it. And it really was kind of fun. I enjoyed eating a lot of things. My friends and I, we would have these different places we'd go and we'd say, let's try this just because. And it was always kind of interesting to do that. And I liked it. And somewhere along the way, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I started having some problems with beef. And my problem was, it started very simply. I was at a 4th of July barbecue at an aunt's house, and we had a ton of different hamburgers and hot dogs and all kinds of other product. And I ate a lot. I ate probably more than I should have. And then it turns out I got the flu. And as I was sick with the flu for like 2 days, all I could taste was beef. And it really just kind of turned my stomach, and I didn't want to eat beef again after that. It was just the end for me. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to eat beef. So I kept eating other things, and I would still, try other things, and there were still some textures that I liked and some things that I wanted, and I was trying to replicate those as best I could. Then it turned out that at some point, chicken didn't really appeal to me. I started to lost my taste for chicken. There was something about, I ate some mealy chicken one time that was maybe a little bit undercooked. And it was like, I don't need to eat this anymore. And turkey kind of fell in that same category for me just because of the texture and the relationship to chicken in that sense. And I decided I really didn't want to eat any more of those. So that, it was getting easier for me to kind of step away, right, and try some other things. My wife, meanwhile, had started to move vegetarian, and I know some people who went much further and went to vegan. And, that sort of helped kind of push me in a direction to do something. Then with the pandemic, it was just easier to cook one meal and make everyone happy with whatever I cooked and just leave the meat out. It was basically meat on the side was kind of the approach. It was sort of I'll just leave it out and I'll start coming up with other things to replace it. Now, I like some of the textures. That's the biggest thing I miss is the textures. But I didn't really miss the fats, and I didn't really miss sort of some of the tastes of it, but I really missed the textures. That was especially true of hamburgers. And when Beyond Meat and Impossible came out with their products that are really good products that have that meatiness, that texture, I solved the problem for how I did away with beef in my diet. And that's the thing about eating plant-based and switching around to doing plant-based. If you do it right and you make some really tasty, delicious, delightful, great dishes, you add the right spices, you get the right textures, you can get to a point where it's just phenomenal and you don't really miss the meat at all. And that's what I'm finding. And I keep finding new ways. I miss the idea of like a nice sliced pork that's been smoked and that has a nice barbecue sauce on it. And if I can replicate that texture, then I'm okay. I've done everything I need to get all the flavors I want and be able to enjoy it in some way. Now, here's the thing. People get all confused. They hear vegetarian, they hear, people that are vegan, and they hear about all these different things, and people get all confused about it. And it's, you kind of get up in arms. It's like, oh, we should eat meat because we're carnivores. And, that's the way I was brought up. I was too. And I just like to think that there's a balance here somewhere. Some people will tell you it's all about the animals and about animal welfare. And sure, that's a nice component of it. But that's not what's in it for me. I'm in it just because I wanted to change some of my habits. Like, I'm getting a little older and I need to eat a little smarter than I did before anyway. So why not start to change some of my habits and enjoy things, but still have that sort of textures and flavors and all the things that I liked about eating meat, just with other products, with other things. If they're all vegetable matter, it's great. The thing about vegetables, you cut them up and you can do so much with them. And if you spice them properly and you do things with them, you can have something really great. People talk about, oh, there's a crudité platter. It's the carrots and the celery with the ranch dressing, right? And that's boring. There's nothing about that that's really compelling. You can do so much more with those carrots and that celery to make a better dish and make something that's so much better than that. And the interesting thing is, my mom comes over to eat once in a while at our house. We'll make something. And she's gotten to the point where we make something and she'll go, this isn't meat? And she has that moment because you get to the point of making something that's so good, so flavorful, has all the right textures and has all the right spices that you can make something really great. So what I'd like to do is kind of take you on the journey with me in this channel. I'm going to evolve the way I talk about food, and we'll talk about some of the fun things we can do and some of the ways we can eat and some of those things, and we'll get to that stuff as we get into it. And it'll be a little bit more about the recipes and some of the things that I'm trying to replicate rather than just talking about how I made it, right? I want to start changing up the way I think about it and doing this channel a little bit differently and really start talking about the foods and, sort of the sustainability of it. And, sure, there's an animal welfare piece to it. I'm no militant about this stuff. I know some people are, and they get into it and they say, oh no, it's got to be this way. And I like to think that you can still eat some animal products like, say, cheese or eggs or milk. You don't have to eat them all the time, but you can mix it up a little bit and make it a little more interesting. So you're cutting back on that, but you're still enjoying it a little bit. I love cheese. I don't want to give up cheese. I like some eggs once in a while, so that's important to me to keep the eggs in the diet. But I don't need to have, milk with my coffee. Oat milk is a great substitute. It foams just as well. It has the right texture and flavor to me in my mouth. The mouthfeel is the same. So I'm just as happy to have that in my morning coffee, or if I'm making some dish to use it in that. So it's funny how you start to evolve your thinking a little bit if you just give it a little thought. I'm just talking about going plant-based here. I'm not talking about a revolution. I'm just talking about being a little bit smarter in the way that we eat and the things that we do. And I just want to talk about that in this video channel. So we'll get started. I'll bring some recipes to you, and it'll be a little fun, I hope, when I tell you some stories and maybe show you some tips and tricks that you can use in the kitchen.